night.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is for January 6th, 2025. Thank you, Coraline, for the lovely Morning Somewhere shout. Sit right over there and say hi to her. It's Ashley Burns, fresh off the red carpet. How you doing, Ashley?
Hey, good morning. I love it. I've been looking forward to this Golden Globes because of the host, Nikki Glaser, because of the roast compilations that she's a part of, where she just absolutely brutally roasts people, but somehow doesn't seem like she said mean stuff, but somehow it doesn't feel mean-spirited.
I agree with that. How do you feel when they have a roasty style comedian on like hosting an award show?
Well, it's weird because you're sort of taking pot shots at everyone there as the host, right? And yet you need them to laugh at your jokes and somehow be on board with all this. And it can be tough, but it seems like that's what the Golden Globes in particular is leaning into. Right? Like aren't they the ones that had Ricky Gervais for years?
Yeah.
And he would always like
have
lay
like a beer
into
up there.
Hollywood and so it seems like that's what they want in particular.
Yeah.
Like maybe they decided that's what sets them apart.
Ricky Gervais is an interesting one, though, because, I don't know, to me there's something especially off-putting about a multi-millionaire that has a chip on his shoulder, and I just don't, it's not my vibe, Ashley. It's not my vibe.
Right, like how big are your problems, really?
Right, and like he especially always seems like he's fighting something that none of us know what he's fighting. Like he'll like lean into the atheism thing as well out of nowhere, and it's, I don't know. I never really enjoyed it very much.
But Nikki Glaser, we do like. But I also understand that can be.
I think she's fucking hilarious.
Confronting, yes.
Yeah, she's really hilarious.
But she strikes me as like the sort of the lady like your friend who is like all put together, and then you go out to the bar and you get a couple of wines in, and she just fucking unloads, and you're like, oh my god, this is incredible. She's like that friend.
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking about. I can picture like 5 or 6 people over the course of my life that are like that, and she's hilarious. She's also extraordinarily dirty comedian. So she would have to clean that up for television, especially live television.
Yeah, a little bit, but like straight out of the gate, she also did make a joke about like, I'm in a room full of producers, and this is the first time I've had all my clothes on. I feel like I've made it.
Yeah,
you know. So she didn't hold back in that regard.
Right.
But you're right. It was probably words that like you're okay with the toddlers hearing.
We should also say the top of this. We're going to be talking a lot about the Golden Globes because
they're
it does lead
weird.
to Oscars.
They're weird.
It also covers film and TV, which I like. You don't need 2 award shows for that anymore. I mean, really, honestly, do you? I mean, do we need a separate one for streaming since it's not technically either one?
Right. Let's get Jeff Keighley on this. Just like put it all into one.
Oh, I see. So you have gaming. You just have a media. Oh, this is an interesting concept.
Although that show's going to run for 8 hours, I got to tell you.
Yeah, see, that's exactly it to me. That's when we talk about the host of an award show. I'm there to talk about the movies and celebrate the movies. Everyone's trying to do something different. This is why they take 4 hours, is because like there's all this like faff around the award show itself. I would be happy with just a presentation, like a press conference where they come and pop.
Right, but then they televise these things, and as a result, they want people to watch these things, right? So you don't just want the headline of here's who won, although that is still how most of us consume it.
Right.
But you want people to tune in for the glitz and the spectacle, and that comes with a lot of extra faff.
It's also this huge night, all these awards, all this press coverage. It's a fashion mecca where people show up on the red carpet. They prepare for this. It's this extraordinary, huge night. 2 weeks later, can't remember a single thing that happened. Like, can't remember who won, can't remember who was nominated.
You can sometimes, however, remember who lost for a bit longer. Because it'll be some weird thing. Yeah, or you hear like, oh yeah, like The Bear won a whole bunch of comedy stuff. Weird.
Right. The controversy.
Yes. So those sort of like, I don't know about this choices, those tend to last longer than the slam dunks in terms of conversation.
Like who won Best Picture the night that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock? That's a great trivia question.
I couldn't tell you.
That's a great trivia question because everyone remembers this. Of course you're going to remember the slap. That's kind of a weird outlier. But but you can't. There is a special operation in my brain for ejecting this information. Like it aggressively removes this information from my brain.
Well, you just go, I don't need to know this.
No.
This isn't going to come up again. Why would I need to know Best Picture?
But it's weird because I'm interested in it, and at the same time I can't remember it. So just
You know
just
what
to
this
catch
is,
everybody
Bunny?
up really quickly,
This is the playoffs of the media world, okay?
big winners for the night
This is the Heisman.
were The Brutalist and Emilia Perez. Which this is the great thing about award shows is Emilia Perez had 10 nominations, a ton of wins, a lot of big ones. Never had heard of it. So now this is on my radar for something I want to watch. I knew about The Brutalist, but it's in a limited release, and we are not in limited release country, Ashley.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can be. Look, we got Paddington early.
Is Paddington limited? though?
Well, sort of. Paddington's out here, but Paddington isn't out until February in the U.S. Suck it, America.
I'm just saying, if you get one of these like movies where it's got a limited run of
It's
like
in 300
screen-
theaters. Yeah. And then we probably won't get one of those where we're at. You're
Yeah.
right.
I don't mean the country of Scotland. I mean we're in a territory where we're getting a triple whammy out here, and we're probably not going to see it. So I am looking forward to seeing The Brutalist.
Yes. So So The Brutalist won for best film. For
Drama.
best drama, and then Emilia Perez won for best musical or comedy. But what's interesting about that is there was another nominee in that category, Bernie, that perhaps you can speak to, that was nominated as a musical or comedy. This is a small film that came out end of 2024, starring Demi Moore, called The Substance.
I don't understand how the Golden
body
Globe,
horror film.
Right. I saw the movie. I don't understand their criteria for classifying a film or a TV show as a comedy.
Did you laugh at any point?
No. I mean, it was colorful. That's about all I can say. That would make that a comedy. I don't know what would classify it as a drama. I don't know if that's up to the filmmakers. Do they submit in a certain category?
Well, does
It did not win, by the way. That's what Substance and Wicked are some of the notable films that were nominated for musical or comedy and didn't win.
right, and I can't speak to whether Emilia Perez is pulling a bear and getting a win in a category that seems like an odd fit because I don't really know a lot about it. But The Substance just feels like a really strange nomination in that category. Maybe they don't have. Maybe that's the only two. Maybe they don't have. Like, do they have a horror category? Mm-hmm. They do?
No. They don't.
They don't.
Do not
So
have
it's
a
like
horror category.
you just sort of have to go, this was good and we want to recognize it somehow. So I don't know, chuck it in comedy.
Well, I guess maybe, if you're looking at something too and you see like this big A24 release like The Brutalist that was a clear favorite to win best drama, then maybe if you're the filmmaker, you think, well, maybe we have a better shot in the comedy category. But I'm just speculating here. I really have no idea how they choose it. It doesn't seem like The Bear wanted to be in the comedy category when it was winning for best comedic television series.
Maybe not. That's where they submit it though, right? That's
Yeah.
where they submit for nomination. So that's a choice that they make.
Other big names, while we're talking about like the controversy, you remember that more than anything else. Brutalist beat out Dune Part 2 along with A Complete Unknown. That's the Timothy Chalamet, Bob Dylan movie. Conclave, what else on here? Nickel Boys, not familiar with that at all. And then September 5th.
Look at more of these hoity-toity limited releases.
A lot of independent movies on here. There is a special category, Ashley, for films in the Golden Globes, which is the Cinematic and Box Office Achievement. I had to figure out what the hell this was, so I looked it up on Wikipedia. According to Dick Clark Productions, the new organizing body of the Golden Globe, the award recognizes the year's most acclaimed, highest earning, and or most viewed films that have garnered extensive global audience support and attained cinematic excellence. So it's basically a blockbuster award.
Okay.
To be eligible for nomination, a film must have grossed $150 million with at least $100 million grossed in the U.S., which is interesting.
Okay, so it has to be both commercially successful and also critically successful and garnering conversation beyond the box office.
I like even though awards now are like, well, was it domestic or international? Give me a break.
Okay, so and the winner in that category was my boy Wicked, which I keep trying to get you to watch. I'm now that it's out on like home streaming on premium video on demand.
She's trying to get me to watch this
I
movie.
got it, and I just keep having it on in the background whenever you like walk through a room, and I'm like, this one's a banger. This is popular. You've definitely heard this on Instagram. You can see where the song is from now, and I'm one day I'm going to get you there.
You know what we should do? We should do like back to back. We'll watch Wicked, an adaptation of Wizard of Oz. And then there's been so many adaptations of Wizard of Oz. I recently read that I think it was Brett Goldstein said that Ted Lasso was an adaptation of Wizard of Oz, that it was heavily inspired by Wizard of Oz, the story beats in the show.
Now I've got to go back.
Yeah,
and
now you're back,
I'm sure
right?
there's like an analysis too of like, here's what this is. I want to know who's the Cowardly Lion.
That would be Nick, right?
Would it?
Or that would be what's the guy? It would be the Diamond Dogs, I assume. It would be the accountant guy. I forget his name. Niles, is that his name?
Oh yeah, no, he's great. He's great.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think of him because he was a snooty butler in Downton Abbey.
Hell, even Rebecca could be the Cowardly Lion the way her story starts, right?
Yeah, so we'll have to go through and do an analysis. Like we're like, oh, who's the Tin Man?
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll sit down.
Who's
We'll
the
watch
Scarecrow?
Wicked, and we'll watch Wild at Heart, Nicolas Cage, Laura Dern movie. That's what we'll do. You can get further apart in adaptations of Wizard of Oz. Interesting to me, though, was that Dune Part 2 was nominated for Best Dramatic Film, beat by The Brutalist, but it didn't make the Blockbuster Award.
Maybe that's because
category.
it was expected to do well. Although that doesn't make any sense. So the nominees for the Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Award.
You're going to recognize these ones, guys.
Right. So there was Wicked, which won. Also Alien Romulus, Beetlejuice, Deadpool and Wolverine, Gladiator 2, Inside Out 2, Twisters, and The Wild Robot. So maybe it has something to do as well with beating expectations, because I think all of those movies, they did well. I think they were expected to do good for the most part. Out of all of those, I would think that Deadpool and the Wolverine is the one that comes closest to meets expectations, because everyone assumed that one was
Just
going to be.
weird that that's an award-nominated movie now.
You know what though? I love that. I love that there's a category where they will nominate the stuff that did great and is mainstream.
People always say like they want the award shows to, nominate the shows and the movies that they're watching, the popular ones, and that they tend to lean away from those. And yet when there's like a People's Choice Award, it doesn't seem as cool or prestigious as these awards. Like even this one seems like, okay, they're giving award nominations to Deadpool and Wolverine and Beetlejuice. Or
Right.
Twisters. Twisters is actually a weird one on there.
Well, I wonder if it has something to do with like People's Choice Awards. That's a voting thing a lot of times, right? And you're like, I don't want people to vote on it. I want the experts, the critics, the snooty types to just agree that I have great judgment.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. It's like while we're
But when
talking,
they do, I'm going to go, I'm not sure I agree with you there.
let me weigh in with my thoughts. While we're talking here about Gladiator 2, which is nominated for this, I keep calling it the Blockbuster Award, the Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Award. Denzel Washington was nominated, did not win for Best Supporting Actor, which I thought was interesting because his appearance in the trailer set people off. It was very controversial when he was in the Gladiator 2 trailer.
And yet, I've heard nothing about good things about his performance. So that award
Also, by the way, Denzel Washington just won a Presidential Medal of Freedom, I believe.
I saw that. So there must have been a ceremony. Was it maybe Friday over the weekend? I saw a lot of photos of people getting medals. And I found it really interesting that it seemed to be a spread across a lot of things that I don't know, I guess, what the Presidential Medal of Freedom is, because I would expect that to be like, I don't know, almost like a Nobel Peace Prize.
It is the highest civilian award that you can win in the U.S.
Okay, so it just means that you're a great dude.
It's great. I think it's really interesting. Just going to point this out, that the president awards these presidential medals of freedom at the same time, in the same window of time that they do all of their pardons.
So they do you do real goods and you get to keep living.
These are like pardons for celebrities, basically. This is what you lobby for.
Does that make you cancel proof? Okay, so here's the list of who got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. This is basically the Presidential Golden Globes. Jose Andres Bono, Ashton Baldwin Carter, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Michael J. Fox, Tim Gill, Jane Goodall, Fannie Lou Hamer, Irvin Magic Johnson, Robert Francis Kennedy, Ralph Lauren, Lionel Messi, or is it Lionel? William Sanford Nye, so that's Bill Nye. George W. Romney, David M. Rubenstein, George Soros, George Stevens Jr., Denzel Washington, and Anna Wintour. So Weird mix.
The weird thing is that Hillary Clinton got it for the comedy category, which I found to be weird, really bizarre. What an odd choice. And then Ricky Gervais came out and roasted everybody. Odd ceremony for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Yeah, but back to the Golden Globes. The only other thing I think of really of note that I want to point out here, I want to see The Wild Robot. And I think The Wild Robot, they were doing a theatrical re-release and everything. I feel like The Wild Robot was doing a big push to try to fill in this, like, there's a little bit of a gap with Pixar. I know Pixar had a big year with Inside Out 2, but I feel like if someone can kind of work their way in there as an animation studio and kind of break the stranglehold that Pixar has over box office animation, it's a lot of money at play. It's billions of dollars at play if somebody can do that.
I agree with you. And I get the feeling that people want that. People want a new challenger.
And there's always been people like DreamWorks and things like that, and films that have done well. Like even the Despicable Me franchise is surprisingly a huge juggernaut. But Pixar is kind of synonymous with cinematic animation, right? It's a must-see kind of a situation. And if you can get into that slot, or at least a share of that, man, there's a lot of money to be made, though. But Wild Robot didn't win.
Who did?
Golden Globe
I thought they would have been the shoo-in.
No, this is pretty interesting. It went to Flow. This is a Latvian film. I'll just read this real quick because I've heard about it, but I didn't know much about it. So Flow is a Latvian film, 2024 animated independent fantasy adventure film. The film is notable for being completely rendered on the free and open source software Blender and containing no dialogue. That's really interesting to me.
No, that is that. I mean, does seem like if you're going to have like an awards bait animated film, being like, this is one that has no dialogue, would be a shoo-in. But then that's actually not true.
Yeah, because
you have a lot of films that that work that way and that are just they're very visually they do visual storytelling. WALL-E. Had virtually no dialogue for the a lot of the important storytelling beats, and yet
way too much dialogue.
And I wouldn't have considered that to be like, oh, look at the indie approach they're taking to animated filmmaking.
Right.
No, but that's cool that they did it all in Blender. That's amazing.
When I don't know if you heard them, but when I did my last run of guest appearances, I was asking people, what app would you like to know inside and out? Like if you could snap your fingers and instantly know one piece of software that you can use like an expert, what would it be?
Yeah, I know yours.
Excel,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I ended up cutting some of them because almost everybody said Blender. And a lot of people I was talking to were former Rooster Teeth people, so it does kind of make sense. Kind of makes sense. But it's like, if you know the software in and out, does that also make you a good artist? Like if you knew Word inside and out, you wouldn't be a great writer. You would just know how to use Word to its ultimate abilities.
Speak for yourself.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does. Tragically, it makes sense. Although I would love to just be able to like take a Word class and then be a best-selling novelist.
Yeah, or it would be frustrating to maybe know Blender inside and out and know all the tools and not know like how to apply them because you're just not that good of an artist.
Right. Like I can learn how to use a tablet and Adobe Photoshop, but that's not going to make me able to draw all the incredible things that people do.
Right. I know how to use a pencil. And yet somehow knowing how to use a pencil and knowing how to use paper doesn't translate to me being able to draw a single goddamn thing.
Right. Like what's your go-to art? I do the 5-year-old, like the kindergarten version of the sun.
Oh, we talked about this. Remember we had the doodle, everyone's default doodle last year?
Mine is now the sun.
Yours is now the sun?
Yeah, I've been sort of paying attention to if there's a blank paper or one of the kids is drawing something and I'm going to draw with them, I always draw the cartoon like 5-year-old sun, the circle with just like the lines around it. That's it.
Have you heard?
That's it. That's my advanced art degree.
Have you heard the generational thing that Gen Z draws like a sun the way you're talking about? But the millennials learn to draw the sun in the corner, and the sun is like coming off of the side of the paper.
I absolutely am familiar with the corner, although that was not my time.
Yeah, apparently this is something I never noticed. It's like a big deal, like on TikTok trends and things like that. Like the millennial pause. You familiar with that?
What's the millennial pause?
Millennial pause is when millennials go to record themselves. They pause at the beginning, like after they hit record. Whereas Gen Z, as soon as the video starts, they're already talking. Like they're talking while they're putting their phone down. Millennials set it down, hit record, step back, there's a pause, and then they say, "Hey guys, what's going on?" Or whatever. I've never noticed it, but once somebody pointed it out, it's like now I can't unsee it, kind of a thing.
I would definitely put myself in a millennial pause category then.
Do you do that?
I do. I
Yeah.
absolutely do.
It might be something to do with coming from an analog world where you had to kind of wait for something to ramp up to speed, and you just kind of, or there was a pause in the technology after you'd hit record. You'd hear the ding of record, and then you wait, and then you see the little red light finally appear.
Right, because you don't know if is it because you can edit out the pause.
You
right?
can always edit out the pause.
You can trim the pause off the beginning, but if you have already started talking and it wasn't recording, you can't get that back, babe.
Well, you want to talk about other news? We mentioned TikTok really briefly. This week, Supreme Court's going to hear whether or not TikTok gets shut down in the U.S. That is going to happen on January 10th.
Interested to see what happens with that, because I think there have been rumblings that it may actually get like a stay of execution or something like that. Also, in related tech news, Brittany, last week, I think maybe just on Friday, we talked about Meta was rolling out these AI profiles on Facebook and Instagram, like basically AI people with profiles that would then generate content and like you could interact with them and they could leave comments and things like that. And we were like, why would you do that? Why are you not just actively contributing to the dead internet, but then making that like a marketing point? Well, great news, Brittany. I think they listened to the podcast where we talked about the de-shitification of the internet. All us. And they've actually rolled that back. So they've now deleted all of the AI profiles that they had created previously.
Yeah. I don't get it either. I don't get what they're hoping to achieve with that.
I think that what they're hoping to achieve is first of all, if they can get people like sharing this AI, like, so these AI profiles would post AI generated content. And if people were to post and share and basically spread that content, it would normalize AI content, which I think they want, because then it lowers the resistance to their future business models. And also, they could very easily use those characters to go out and like comment and make people feel good about the content that they've posted by interacting with it. Like, right? Like someone you post something and someone says, "Oh my God, that's so great." You kind of feel good about it, right?
Right.
And so if they were to use that to go out and make people feel good about posting their content by having what is essentially a fake interaction, then is that a win for them? It's fake engagement, but they're like building people up emotionally on their platform.
Well, they analyze the hell out of all of this data. And the thing that scares me is they're seeing something that we're not seeing, because like even going back to Instagram, there was a big change that took place some point in the past few years where basically all the platforms had this rise of the For You page, which is you go through the effort to curate your own list and follow who you want to follow. And after a while, all the platforms essentially said, no, that's not good enough. We need to show you some extra stuff. In other words, people are spending so much time on these platforms that they're running out of things to see, and they need to start populating more. And they used to do that with just randos, like here's some random stuff we've selected for you. But now it's getting to the point where even that might not be enough for how much people are scrolling. So here's some generated content that we have to show you. That's scary to me. That says that screen time is just soaring through the roof, and they have this giant hole that they have to fill in the gaps with.
It's funny. So we get on our iPhones every week, we get an activity report that says like you spent an average of this much time, screen time per day.
It's horrifying.
And every time I see that report pop up, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to know, but I need to make myself look at it.
It's important.
And a lot of times I can look at the breakdown and be like, oh, okay, well, out of the 6 hours I was on my phone today, 4 hours was Audible. I can live with that.
Yeah, you can live with that.
But still, you see that number and you realize how much time you spend with your screen, and it's very confronting.
And we're complaining about the batteries on our phone. Why do these batteries suck so bad? It's like, well, you're using a device for 8 hours a day. That's
right.
Why.
Like a device that's
actively using
the size of a graham cracker.
Right. And you should be shocked you're not charging it like 6 times a day. But it's, I even think about on Instagram when you scroll far enough and it goes, you're out of stuff or you're all caught up. You're out of things to watch. So here's some extra stuff. I feel like that line is now gone. Now it just leads you straight into, stay on. Here's a bunch more stuff to feed your dopamine.
Yeah, but don't leave yet. Check this out.
Right, God, they just want you on the damn thing all day long.
It's too much, Brittany. Too much.
Too much. In other news, also, Apple iPhones apparently have made a change where now they automatically opt you in to allowing your photos to be analyzed for AI purposes. I feel like something like that is going to be regulated very quickly. I hope it will. But be on the lookout for that. If you don't want your personal photo library being mined for AI data, you might want to check that out if you've updated to the recent iOS.
I read it was a very disturbing anecdote from someone who had used one of those AI, sort of like an AI image program on Facebook. And then they were being served Facebook ads with them in the photos.
Oh, really?
Yes. Like intentionally, it's like, it was something like, oh, look, picture yourself at this museum. And it had them, like their photo or like an image of them in this museum. And it was very, like, we're getting really dystopian with some of this stuff.
Scary. It's scary. Hey, and this is all the stuff, right? All this like increase we talked about last week. Video games and how they just look better and better over time. This is all the things that had given rise to the theory that we live in a simulation to begin with. And that's become popular, much more popular, I feel like, in the last 10 years, because I think people can understand
how that could happen.
Broader basis, how that could happen. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, there's a little bit of a long one for us on a Monday, but wanted to cover all the hot Golden Globe news.
And I guess we should wrap by offering a big congratulations to Hacks, which won the best comedy or musical television series over The Bear this year.
Oh, congratulations to them. Although Bear won for best comedic actor. So, there you go. And got a Presidential Medal of Freedom Award. Not sure. Yeah, big winners in TV were Shogun and Hacks were some of the big winners in television. We didn't really cover much of that. But.
No, but that's quite all right.
All right. Well, who are our nominees for today's best Patreon subscriber?
I would like to thank our nominees, Halfwit Studios and Donovan Brubaker. Thank you so much for sponsoring this episode of our show at patreon.com/morningsomewhere.
All right. Well, that does it for us today, January 6th, 2025. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.